Welcome to this week in the world of wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our Monday Night Raw review, and holy amazeballs, this was actually a great episode of Monday Night Raw. I thoroughly enjoyed, count 'em, all 3 hours. I didn't really feel like at any point in the show there was really any kind of significant lull. Maybe there were some things that I cared for more than others, certainly, but really this was consistent programming tonight, and I loved how there was so much build to Mania. This felt like a Raw that belonged on the road to WrestleMania. Ashton, what'd you think of it?
Well, I genuinely did think that this was the best Raw that we've gotten all year, and I think that even though we were only 3 months into the year, I still think that that's sort of worth mentioning because of the fact that we've also been on the road to WrestleMania for 3 months. I feel like this was a very strong Raw. If I had to give it my old rating out of 10, it would probably be somewhere around a pretty solid 8 out of 10, I would say. I can't really name anything in this show that was so bad that it genuinely annoyed me, but just in case I can come up with something here in the next few seconds, or if you have something, let's get into our first segment.
All right, let us get right into our first segment, indeed, Heat of the Night. And yeah, I don't even have nitpicks that I could think of. I mean, really, and this is a stretch, but if I had to give anything, I felt like the whole Booker T Triple H segment would have kept its emotional impact had he not retracted the termination of Booker T's employment.
See, but that's the thing, though, John. It wasn't meant to have an emotional impact. It was meant to prove a point.
And that's just it. That's why I'm forgiving it anyway, because to me it was all about head games. To me it was about Sting, you're coming into my house, and in my house I make the rules, I have the control, know what you're in for, and because that was the mission here, that was the objective of the promo, I feel like it was accomplished, and therefore I really can't even have any sour grapes about that, so I'm good for tonight.
Let me ask you a question, John.
Absolutely.
What do you think the Tag Team Championship match is going to be at WrestleMania?
I still feel like it's going to be some type of four corners matchup. It'll probably be the Usos versus Team Uppercats versus the Ascension versus Primetime Players.
Okay. That I can buy into. I like that, and I hope that happens. But the problem, and this is not a heat of the night, this is just a nitpick, this is just a little thing that I saw some people talking about on Twitter, and I was like, yeah, you know what, that is a problem. And I was even going to say, before I was going to bring this up, I checked out one time all night tonight, and that's probably a new record for me on 3-hour Raws, that I only checked out once. And the one time that I checked out was when the Usos music hit. I just do not give even half of a crap about the Usos anymore. But what I was going to say is I'm getting so sick of the Tag Team Championship basically being whatever team the Tag Team Champions are going to face at the next pay-per-view, they face them on every episode of Raw and almost every episode of SmackDown leading up to that pay-per-view. What exactly are you trying to get me to pay for?
Yeah, I really do agree with what you're saying. I feel like this is also a good time to bring up that I'm loving personally, and I don't know if I'm in the minority here, I'm loving the IC title storyline.
Whoa, we're not there yet.
I know, but
we'll talk about that when we get there.
Well, I know we're gonna get more in depth when we get there, but I'm making the point that they're doing something different. It has variances and it has several faces. To me, I think my problem is it's not only that they face each other every Raw and every SmackDown. It's really beginning to feel like the tag team titles are just the Usos' belt. Yeah. Like it belongs to them. Now, what was it, like last week or 2 weeks ago? PTP beat the Ascension. I would have really liked this week if the Uppercats faced the Primetime Players, to try and continue that momentum. Darren Young has gone on record and said, this time around, I feel like the PTP are capable of gunning for the gold. Titus has echoed those sentiments, so I think it would be nice to get them in the ring.
And you know what? We could have even had like a Buddy and Murphy kind of storyline where PTP wins the titles off a hot streak.
Yeah, and you very easily could have done that. And that's why
that would have actually brought interest back to the tag division.
And I agree, and it would have been the first time PTP would have held the belt, so he would have had like a lot of momentum in a lot of different areas. But when it's just, Usos, uppercuts, and I like, the uppercuts, and nothing against them, but that's all it is. It's
I
just
think
this
that might be my
one-dimensional
biggest
thing.
problem is just that the Usos are on every freaking show. I am
There's
so
no
sick of the
variance to me.
Usos.
Yeah, there's no variance, and I think, like, I'm getting bored of the Usos, too.
I was even rage tweeting tonight on Raw. I was saying about how, like, oh, when we say Us, y'all say, oh, Us! No, screw you!
Yeah. I mean, to me, what made me an Usos fan to begin with, before they got all these reigns, was I really did appreciate that. I thought they were like a genuinely talented team, but they were struggling to get those belts, and that's why their first win, like, I was so happy for them. But now they've been to the top of the mountain,
They're
and
a
they've
dynasty.
they're a dynasty now. They are the New York Yankees, steal a line from CM Punk. And I want fresh blood now. I want, the Ascension to kind of stake their claim. I don't even mind if PTP stakes their claim. I'm glad they're back together personally. Again, I've never been the biggest Primetime Players fan, but better together than apart. They did nothing apart.
And I'm one of the very few people that can honestly say that I've never, and I mean never, been a fan of the Usos. Ever.
Yeah.
Not even when they were in FCW. Never.
To me, and I may get a lot of criticism for saying this, it's coming to the point where I'm getting so bored of the Usos, I would honestly prefer J&J Security making a run for the tag belt and kind of throwing their hat in the ring than seeing the Usos again. Just because it would be different, and certainly they're a great comedy duo, so it'd probably even be more entertaining. But yeah, the Usos are really getting pretty dull. So hopefully that
Dude, I'm telling you, to this day, I still don't get what people see in the Usos. And you say they're getting dull. I've never seen them as anything but dull.
Right.
Like,
so
people might criticize and be like, oh, you only cheered the Usos until they won the titles, and then you stopped cheering them. You're just like the anti-bandwagoner.
that would be a thing.
You can't say that about me, though. You can't say that about me because I've never liked the Usos. I didn't like them before they won the titles. I didn't like them when they won the titles.
I feel like they're better chasers than champions, and then there are, a group of wrestlers that kind of fit that mold. And
I feel like they're better house show workers than television workers.
There you go. But hopefully,
in other words, get them off my TV, please.
Yeah. So hopefully,
even if only temporarily. And I'm sorry for cutting you off so many times. Please continue.
No, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I'm really glad you could get your point across that you never really have been big on these guys, and I could certainly understand it because again, they have become a dynasty, and I think when you become a dynasty, when you were struggling so hard to get to that place to begin with, you really do kind of lose something for the people that did like them. So I don't know. I mean, that would be a great discussion to have on our TwitWoW subreddit, early plug. If you guys agree with us or disagree with us, it'd be a great debate to have. But hopefully the Four Corners matchup becomes reality. And what I really wanted to ask was, is there anything else you wanted to get off your chest before we get into
No, sir!
Yeah, this Raw was fantastic. So with that said, let us get right into our Monday Night Raw review, and we open it up with Seth Rollins and J&J Security. We get a recap of him appearing on The Daily Show and pretty much laying down the gauntlet to Stewart, like, I'm going to be in Raw this Monday. Do you want to be there, And Stewart says, oh, I'll be there. I have the go. Oh, God, you're much taller in person. So Stewart having a little bit of fun there. And Rollins, he says immediately that he knows that Stewart is watching and he just wants to let him know that he should turn around right now. This isn't some Jerry Lawler, Andy Kaufman situation. And he says that I'm going to show you tonight that I can do your job better than you can. And then, I just wanted to come out here and hear everybody tell me that I suck because the fact is I can talk better than Stewart. And I can, he just goes on all these things. I'm better than John Cena. I'm better than all these guys. He then brings the focus back to the main event, and he says, Roman Reigns, he can't beat Brock Lesnar, but you know something? I can beat Brock Lesnar, and pretty much making the claim that because he has Money in the Bank, he should be in the main event. He will be a future WWE World Heavyweight Champion. After that, Reigns comes out, and pretty much Rollins just kind of repeats his message after, of course, Reigns tells him, hey, I just wanted to come out here and hear the people tell you that you suck. And then a lot of people in the chat said, you both suck! And I was just like, yeah. But then Rollins is like, hey, that doesn't matter to me because I know you can't beat Brock Lesnar and I'm a better wrestler than you and, I'm a better man than you and this and that. And I'm a better man than Brock. Reigns kind of taunts Rollins a little bit, says, look, if you're really a better man, why don't you cash in that briefcase at WrestleMania and make it a triple threat, you versus me versus Brock? And then Rollins is like, well, I could do that, or I could just have you and Brock beat the living tar out of each other, and then I can pick the bones. And he goes through all these instances when he could cash in. Reigns cuts him off, finally says, or I could just punch you in the mouth. And I think Rollins is about to continue like, yeah, you'd really do that. And then before he even could, Reigns does punch him.
For what it's worth, because JBL was pointing out like, oh, Roman Reigns ran out of words to use and he decided to resort to violence. Well, for those of you that weren't paying attention, Seth Rollins actually shoved Roman Reigns before Reigns punched him.
Yeah, so
Seth Rollins instigated the physical violence.
Yeah, way to antagonize Seth.
And then here's my thing. I love Seth Rollins. I like him more than Roman Reigns. I just absolutely hate the hypocrisy of people being like, oh, and JBL too, being like, oh, Roman Reigns ran out of words and he decided to start the violence himself, when at the end of the day, Seth Rollins was the instigator and the initiator of the physical contact. So to me, that like people saying that Reigns is a douchebag or a heel because he did that it's arrogant, or not arrogant, it's ignorant, and it's a bit hypocritical.
Yeah, I do agree with you there. You know how I feel about the Reigns criticism at this point. You and I have talked about it thoroughly.
I'm just trying to keep everyone on a fair footing, man.
I don't blame you, man. Somebody's got to do it. By the way, Ashton, just very quick, I want to take a very quick detour and mention one other nitpick I would have had, but I let it go because I was in such a good mood because of this Raw. Really didn't like the CM Punk chants that started up at several points in the show.
I mean, we can't really...
Can't really point the finger at the crowd, I guess.
We can point the finger at the crowd, but Heat of the Night is usually meant for something that we have against WWE, and the crowd is...
That's why I said nitpick, though, because, it's just a small thing that got under my skin.
Right,
yeah.
I agree, yeah. It is, and it got even worse later in the night when we had the return that we had tonight, and it seemed like it was even worse then, but... I don't know. I mean, he's been gone for over a year now. You would think people would get over themselves and get over it.
Yeah, but apparently not. But the segment does conclude.
Hey, Newark, why don't you cry me a river, build me a bridge, and get over it?
Oh, snap. But, we go to that. We see that there is going to be a Divas Championship match tonight, Paige versus Nikki Bella, and we see Dean Ambrose with the Intercontinental Championship. And then our next formal segment is Rollins is yelling at J&J Security for not being there in the ring. And I love Randy Orton here. I know it's been kind of a divided issue. Some people are loving what Orton's doing. Other people are actually hating it. But he's just like, guys, what were you doing out there? That was embarrassing. You should have been there. Listen, Seth, I believe in you, and I believe in what you were saying. You know what? I think you should go to the Authority and demand a match with Roman Reigns tonight so you can prove that you're the better wrestler. And then Rollins says he can out-wrestle anybody on the WWE roster. He appreciates Orton's advice, but he can handle this on his own. And Orton's just like, hey, man, just trying to help. He walks off. Oh, man. So, yeah, we get Randy Orton continuing to act like a friend to Seth Rollins. I'm personally enjoying it. I mean, do you have anything you want to say, Ashton?
This is such an odd storyline because it seems almost like they're trying to recapture the magic that happened when Daniel Bryan turned his back on the Wyatt family after joining them last year. I'm just curious as to how long they're going to let this storyline drag on because I'm pretty sure they want to do Rollins versus Orton at Mania, but are they going to pull a switcheroo and have Orton and Rollins team up at WrestleMania and have Orton do the turn at Mania rather than having them face each other, or am I just being way too impatient?
I just feel like we got to let this play out for the time being.
So, in other words, I'm just being too impatient.
I think for the time being, yes. I would give it another week maybe. We'll see what they do next Monday. Hell, maybe even something will happen on SmackDown.
Storylines on SmackDown. You're hilarious.
I know, I'm a regular George Carlin. But
I was gonna say you're a regular Jon Stewart.
Oh my god, with the references. But yeah, I'm enjoying it right now. I can understand though where people's gripes is because you had Seth Rollins kind of put the final nail in what was a brutal attack, on Orton that excommunicated him from the Authority. And, we've seen brutal beatdowns in the past, and I've never seen guys, before Orton come in and want to befriend the guy who did it. They're always out for blood, and I think that's what people were looking for. You and I even said on the last Raw TWitWoW, we wanted the Randy Orton that's like, oh, you got a great finisher, kid. I'm still seeing stars, and he just explodes, RKOs Rollins, and leaves, and just, goes on that tear. I don't know, though. I don't know what Orton's game is, but I think that's part of the intrigue for me. So we'll see what happens.